over here. In order to be nominated for this, the criteria is that a social worker of the year has to demonstrate a difference in areas such as advocacy for clients, social policy, social work practice, program development, administration, and/or research. The nominee must demonstrate outstanding leadership, make a positive change for the social work profession, and take risks to achieve outstanding results. A short while ago, in 1964, Ron Calery walked this campus and graduated with his master's in social work. He celebrates nearly 5 decades of work experience within the community action agencies as either a charter member, a former board member, or a CEO. Shortly after graduation, Ron brought the President Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty program to northern Michigan. When I speak of northern Michigan, I'm speaking of the Upper Peninsula, primarily the Sioux area. In 1972, Ron joined the Chippewa-Loose-Mackinac Community Action Human Resource Authority. It's one of 30 community action programs in the state, and Ron is currently the executive director for the authority in the Sioux. For each of these awards that we've handed out today, we've had letters of recommendations and letters of nomination, so I'd like to take a few minutes and just kind of do some excerpts out of these letters that were presented on behalf of Ron. In one letter, an individual had written that he spent his lifetime fighting poverty, serving as a voice for those least fortunate and defending the powerless in our society. Examples of Ron's dedication and social work experience come forth in his tireless advocacy and his selfless dedication to helping the less fortunate get back into the mainstream society. A Sioux St. Marie Tribe chair member recalls his interaction as a boy with Ron. He says, "I grew up in a rural reservation, slum with no indoor plumbing, no sanitation, and nearly impassable gravel roads, with the blight that typically is characterized in Indian communities. Ron reached out and fought to get my fellow members immunized. He fought for secure funding for the establishment of playground equipment for the children in my community. And as a 7-year-old at the time, I can tell you he was my hero." The other thing that this individual mentioned was that Ron taught him the value of a hand up, and therefore, later in life, he was pleased himself to serve. This individual is Aaron Payment, who is the current tribal chairperson for the Sault Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians. In 2007, Ron was recognized for his efforts for the prestigious Terrence DeVerney Award and was awarded by the then Congressman Bart Stuback. Perhaps one of Ron's most notable contributions was the construction of the Avery Square Complex, a project that served to help revitalize downtown Sault Ste. Marie. The project's been widely recognized as a housing model throughout the state of Michigan. And Mr. Calery has also worked closely with the county and local governments to help spur construction of moderate-cost housing in several rural communities. Ron's service to the public in eastern Upper Peninsula and the state of Michigan extends well beyond the affordable housing issues. His service to the state and his community has been extensive. At one time or another, he has been the driving force in just about every organization that plays a positive role in the eastern UP. No matter what the project is, Mr. Calery takes on he will never take no for an answer. As I read through these letters, I saw that time and time again that he persevered. Some of these projects came up with incredible barriers, and still he persevered, sometimes holding on for 13 years to see the construction completed in some of his projects. He never retreats from a challenge. Instead, Ron Calery is known for pausing, examining the various obstacles, assembling a new coalition, seeking different arrangements, and ultimately finding a solution to achieve the goal. I am proud to introduce and award the National Association Social Work of Michigan Social Worker of the Year to Ron Calery. A few minutes and kind of elaborates on the Avery project and any other projects and stories that can help us understand the work that he did in the UP.
Let me start out by telling you, I'm nervous as hell. I'm not used to being on a podium like this and talking. I'm used to being in a room that's full of bigots, right-wingers, fighting for a cause. So I'm going to start off here today by Paul. I got to thank you, Paul, for coming up here and giving me the courage to come up. And I have to apologize to you, my fellow Uber. I didn't want to come here wearing this tie, believe me. My wife went to Goodwill, bought a tie, came home and said, "Thou shalt." You know how that goes. Being here was a shock. I want to thank all those the ones that sponsored me. I want to thank my wife, who's been my inspiration. I asked the Lord one day, I said, "God, and all the stuff and the chaos that I created, how is it that I ended up with such a wonderful, brilliant, beautiful woman?" He said, "Ron, even Rini has to pay for her sins." Thank you, Darrell. Proud to have also one of my kids here, my daughter Kristen, as I listened to an award being presented. Kristen has her MSW, and she works in the child protective field. I have to check her MSW out. I got mine from Michigan State.
Yay!
I thought she went to one of the schools at Michigan State. You know how they have these junior college, and I think they had a school out there in Grand Valley, I think it was. I think that's what it is. I want to thank also one of my sponsors and one of my heroes. With me today is Mark and his wife Mary and Daniel. Tell you how I met Mark years ago. I wanted to do a affordable housing project, Mr. Savery. And I found out very quickly that, number one, state of Michigan did not fund those projects in rural areas. You had to have a minimum of 100 units of housing. Well, that might be a multi-county thing up there, but you couldn't cross political lines. So I had all kinds of what you can't do, you can't do, you can't do. And if you're going to do, you got to have money. We didn't have money, and we didn't have the other things, but we were determined we were going to do it. We ran into Mark McDaniels and talked a long time with him. He was at that time the finance director of a large private corporation there was building housing and affordable housing across the United States, and yes, even outside the country. So he was, as I would call him, one of the mucky mucks, big salaries and that sort of thing. And he agreed to take on the putting together a financial package as a challenge. And it wasn't too long after he started that we called me and wanted me to come down to Lansing and meet with him, and he informed me that he just quit his job. And I should be free to find somebody else because he was out of that company. And I said, Mark, how did you quit? He said, it's very simple. They made a determination at the board meeting that they would no longer build affordable housing, only market housing for the people who got to pay for it. I said, Mark, you're the man I want. Mishka eventually came to him and said, Mark, we're going to give you a grant to start a company, and that company has to raise money for people all across Michigan, and you have to help them get affordable housing built. And he took it on. I remember when we did ours, and I think that lady was a legislator that was up here and going for her third term, and I have to tell her that when Michigan wouldn't finance us, the legislator back then, emphasized back then, but then legislators worked with us, and they had some seniority, and what they did was they simply blocked the state budgets. And picked up the phone while I was in their office and called the directors and said, you ain't got no budget. And when they got down to the nitty-gritty, take care of that project in Sault Ste. Marie, and we'll talk about your budget. So I learned that political trade-offs could be a very handy thing. And that actually true story, it really did happen that way. You go to the Upper Peninsula now, and Paul will tell you that we've got affordable housing across the Upper Peninsula. And I thank you, Mark McDaniel, for being the kind of person that you are. Lastly, I want to thank my parents. They taught me how to advocate. We learned that in our family. Came from an old Italian family. My dad was the kind of guy who always worked 2 jobs. And sometimes he had 3. And one of his second jobs, he started a bread company where we'd go to Canada every morning, 6 o'clock, load that truckload of bread, bring it back to the United States and deliver it. It was good for me. I learned to drive a truck at 11 years of age. And I recall that one time I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and my mother said, George, your books are not looking good. You got some big bucks out there that are owed to you. You got a family here that owes you over $100, and at 10 cents for a loaf of bread, that's a lot of bread. My dad said, Phyllis, that family has nothing to eat but bread. My mother cooked a big pot of spaghetti. And that time I had a new job, delivering food. Now, sorry to get emotional. They would sit around and I would hear them talk at the table. And when they would talk about things, they always talk, especially in the holiday season, about the massacre in the Upper Peninsula. If you go to Google and you Google Italian massacre, you'll find that in the year 1913, 100 years ago, the Italians in Calumet, Michigan, were trying to organize the miners into a union. And I remember when my father and his friends would talk about that and the things that happened in that. And once in a while, he'd say, yeah, good Republicans. One day I said to him, and I'll come back to the story, I said, Dad, you don't seem to like Republicans.
Republicans. What's the story about the good Republicans?
And as we were driving outside the city of Sault Ste. Marie, he pulled over to the side of the road at the cemetery. He pointed out there and he said, "There they all are." I got his drift. I learned it early to deal with political parties. I also learned as I was growing how to work with both sides of the aisle. Unfortunately, they only see that one side today. I learned that in Marquette, you're Marquette, I learned that, by the way, I have to tell you, being from Marquette, you're not handicapped at all. You have a special need, my friend, but you're not handicapped. Handicapped are those idiots out there who don't know how to help people, how to find jobs, how to find housing, how to find training, how to find transportation. Those are the handicapped people, not you. Thank you. We went to Calumet, my wife and I, last fall. We went up there quite a bit. And we were up there last fall, and they had put together a special movie presentation on the history of that day that the slaughter took place. It was Christmas Eve, December the 24th, that's right, 1913. The Italians, the miners, were trying to get a union. And the more they advocated for the union, the more the haves brought the goons to town and beat the bejesus out of them. The Italians and the Finlanders in that area did not give up. They continued their fight and their struggle. They never got far. They kept getting beat up. They had Christmas Eve, a large party for the kids. It was in the second story of the Italian Hall, which was located very near to a large opera company theater that's still there, by the way, and very operational. And you entered by a front door that went up the stairs versus the other front door that went into the main floor. And you went up this large stairway to the upstairs ballroom. As they were partying, somebody yelled out, "Fire! Fire!" And the place panicked. And the people panicked. And somebody kept screaming, "Fire! Fire!" They ran for the stairwell. To this day, the argument is, did somebody actually fall near the bottom of the stairs and others fell over them and blocked the door so you couldn't get out? Or was there somebody really on the other side who locked the door to keep you from getting out? The strong story is the kids began to fall. When it was over and they got it under control, they had to get ladders, go up to the window, and go in. And they had to pull the dead kids and a few of the parents out of that stairwell. All 73 of them. You know now why doors have to open to the outside. That battle, that advocacy is still going on. So it was a great deal of pain that came back down here recently, Madam Legislator, to INC. And while I was here, I went to visit, or tried to, my house, the State House, the People's House. The place where the doors had been locked, where legislation was taking place in the middle of the night, where the Republican Party was about rubber stamping and slamming through legislation that would help to kill unions. 100 years to the time that those young children lost their lives because of the union haters that brought on that false claim of fire. I thought when I got to that picket there, I thought Michigan must be really doing big business. They must be really getting a lot of cars made. Because when I tried to pull up near the Capitol, there were tons of vehicles. Lansing Police, State Police, Sheriff Department, etc. I've never seen that before. I couldn't find a place to even park. What a disgrace. What a disgrace it is for our legislators to say they represent us, because I think they don't. You may believe, and I'm not here to get in lengthy discussion, you may believe that there is indeed a national financial crisis. I don't. If there were a national financial crisis, will we continue to have expensive bridges to nowhere? Would we continue to build planes that don't fly? Would we continue to build ships that don't float? Those just happen to have their roots in legislative districts. And I obviously, with the major crisis going on, the legislators continue to get $174,000 salary a year. And did you know that each legislator in the House of Representatives gets from $1.3 to $1.9 million a year to run their office? Unbelievable. Did you know that the poor people are helping to bail us out? 150,000 families gave up their rent check for affordable housing. They're not sure where they're going to be sleeping. 500,000 DHS families have lost food stamps. 15 million American children go hungry every day. 15 million. And here in Lansing, where the Michigan Council and Food Bank is at, they are shipping foods all around the state trying to help. I learned that over 400,000 Michigan kids go hungry every day. So, in closing, and I want to do it this way. I want to do a commercial. I want to ask you to buy a meal. Buy a meal. We'll leave the money. We'll throw it. You have an empty container, dump the coffee, feel free to put it in there. Authorize somebody at your table to grab your handful of change or dollars and throw them on the table. And we'll leave that with you to take care of and to feed somebody. I hope that you will be strong advocates for your profession. I think the greatest thing in life is to be a social worker and to work for the people. Thank you very much.
And to think that when I first met Ron this afternoon, he looked me square in the eye and said he hadn't written anything to comment on it.
Thank Paul.
So on behalf of NASW Michigan members, I'd like to present Ron Calery with the Michigan Social Worker of the Year for 2013.